Sainsmart 3018 Prover. I bought this right here back in 2020 just to kind of get a little bit of a taste of CNC, and I also bought the laser module with it, which is what's installed on it right now, because very shortly after I got it and I started experimenting with the laser, I found a market for laser engraved tiles, so I got a custom spoil board here with a template. But that's not what we're going to talk about here today. What I've got right below it is the Sainsmart Genmitsu Prover version 2. This is version 1. So we're going to put version 2 together, assemble it, and we'll see what the differences are. Coming up. I'm Roger, welcome to the shop, and as I mentioned at the beginning here, this is the Sainsmart 3018 Prover, and down here is the Prover version 2, which I have not taken out of the box yet. I bought this. Nobody provided it to me. However, Sainsmart has provided me with the version 2 to review. This has not been released to the public yet, as I am making this video, but by the time I do post this video live, then this will be available. So, as I mentioned, I have the laser head in here. It is kind of ancient when you talk about laser engravers now, because this has a 300 millimeter by 180 millimeter working area, which is rather small for when you're doing laser engraving, unless you're doing small things. What I did find though is that these work really well for doing ceramic tiles. And I've got this was set up to do 2 4x6 tiles at a time. Of course, now I have all kinds of other lasers, so I don't use this one quite so much. The laser head, back when this was released, this is a manual focus laser. So you got to fiddle with the little lens, and you got to get a focus to a perfect pinpoint. It's not shielded there, but most of the new ones are. But like I say, as far as lasers, that part of it's ancient. The rest of it though, I did use it as a CNC to do some experimental carving. And if you're just getting into CNC, this is a great entry-level thing to get into. You're not spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a machine to learn it. You can learn it on here, and then you can get something bigger. Now, if you're thinking you're going to put a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood on here and start cutting out shapes and stuff, this isn't the machine for that. This is for carving, and yes, you can do some cutting on thin material. This is for hobby use and a good way to learn. This isn't a big industrial machine, so don't get a misconception there. But with that said, let me get this moved elsewhere. We'll get this out of the box, see what we got. The assembly on this one was quite involved. I have looked through the manual on this. This is not going to be near as involved as it was putting this one together. A lot of the stuff now is pre-assembled. Okay, I have had this open because I took the manual out to look through it. And it comes in this plastic bag, and there's a chart in here as well. It shows you different attachments and options and bits and all that kind of good stuff. Of course, right off the bat, we got a bunch of foam here. And these pieces are going to be the acrylic guards for the side, and you will need to peel that paper off, which can be a challenge sometimes. Hey, you've got a power cord, USB cable. Everything comes in a nice plastic case, as did the first Prover. So you've got the collet in there and some tools and your hold down and your Z-axis and hardware and all kinds of stuff. There's also a, looks like there's a SD card reader in there, micro SD card reader, which has an SD card in it. And we'll get into all that here soon. Okay, now I'm confused. I got 2 power cords. And they are both the same. Well, we'll figure that out. And here you have some bits and bobs. Okay, bits. And if you're British, you just caught what I said. If you're from the US, you probably never heard the term bits and bobs, but that is the equivalent to us saying odds and ends. Okay, and here is the power supply. It's your offline controller. I'm going to take this a bit at a time here. There's our spindle motor right there. That's for the router function. And I don't believe this has a laser head with it. I think that's an option you need to purchase if you decide you want to add a laser to it. So here's your X and Z gantry. This is well packed. And getting down to the last layer here is the Y-axis. Okay, if you're not familiar with X, Y, and Z on CNC or lasers or 3D printers or that type of thing, the Y-axis is this direction. The X-axis is left to right. Z-axis is up and down, sometimes referred to as Z. Depends where you're from. It's nice to see that this is all pre-assembled, because on the original 3018 I had to put all this part together. So I'll get the book out here and we'll get to putting this thing together. Okay, starting out with the base, and this is way different than the version 1. Version 1 has T-slots that run on the table here, which I can't show that on the other one because I have a spoil board mounted on top. So this is quite a bit different design. So on the bottom here, you need to mount this to the plate. So there's 2 screws that need to be put in right here. Hopefully you can see this. You can turn this screw to get that lined up. 2 screws you'll be using are the 6mm by 10mm right there. And you'll need a 5mm Allen wrench for that. And just start your bolt. Don't tighten one down and then try to put the other one in. You may have difficulty with it. And if things aren't quite lined up perfect, you can turn the Z-axis or the Y-axis screw here a little bit. And once you get those in place, snug them down. There's a couple of cable ties right here that you're going to need to remove. Actually, it's just one cable tie wrapped around there, kind of wonky. That locks everything in place so it doesn't move around in transit. So definitely want to get that cut off of there. So once that's removed and you have your screws in, as you turn the Y-axis screw right here, the plate should move freely. All right, next we need to put the little rubber feet on. They come right here, and you'll need a 3M&M alien wrench for that, and they do provide one here, but I'm going to use my driver because it's easier, and I happen to have it handy right here. You got the little rubber feet, go on all 4 corners. Don't over tighten those or you may crunch them. They just need to be snug. So it's just that easy. Now you can turn it back over with the Y-axis motor to the back. Next we'll be putting the gantry on, and for that you'll need these 5mm by 22mm machine screws. This is the gantry. This is the motherboard. This goes towards the back. Same side as the Y-axis motor. There are screws, holes, pre-tapped in the side of this. Try and get this up here so you can see them. Hopefully you can see those right there. There's 4 holes here. Just line all that up. And I'm doing this up on its side right now because it makes it easier for me to see it. But before I tighten anything down, I will definitely have this down where it's flat again. Just want to get everything started here. Again, I'm just starting these. I'm not tightening them down all the way. I'm just getting them in there so they're kind of flush. I'll flip this over and do the other side. I'll do this carefully so I don't damage anything here. I have cardboard down here on my table, so I'm not on any hard surface. Okay, something you'll want to do before you tighten your screws down all the way is make sure that the extrusion and the gantry are perfectly aligned down here, and you're not tipped one way or the other. The tolerance here is pretty close. Once you're sure of that, you can tighten things down. If you are using one of these as an extra little measure, after you have it tight with that, use the L handle to give you a little bit more torque, so you can make sure everything is good and tight. Don't turn it so far that you strip something or break something. You just want to make sure that they're good and tight. It's also a good idea to go around the rest of the machine and make sure that none of the screws came loose in shipping. Ooh, there's one. Oh, with the exception of just that one, everything was good and tight. Feature I've noticed here that's a great improvement over version 1 is you have a knob here, and you can move your Y-axis table with it rather than reaching in and trying to turn the screw. And you also have one up here on the X-axis, and you have one up here on the Z-axis. This is a nice feature. Okay, next we're going to be putting the spindle motor in. For that, you'll need your spindle motor, and you will need the collet. It's ER11 collet. That's what's in this little box right here. And there's other collets you can buy to put in here if you want to use different sizes. This is for 1/8" bits, which is what this comes with. That's one tough plastic bag there. Okay, you'll notice one side of that collet is tapered. The long taper, goes up. I'll show you that here in a minute. So you take the nut off of the spindle, and I'll need the little wrenches for that, because it's on there good and tight. So one goes on the shaft, the small one. The larger one will go on the collet nut. Remove that nut, collet, long taper, goes up towards the motor. Put your nut back on. And you can just snug it up a little bit right now. You don't need to tighten it because we'll be putting a bit in there later. All right, this mounts in this sleeve right here. And you will probably need to loosen the screw on the front here. And I'll turn this around so you can see it better. Screw right here. You do not want to over tighten this when you put this, once you get your spindle in place. This is also marked forward. So where it says forward, that goes towards the front, obviously. And you're going to need to spread that a little bit to get that to drop down in there. You can always take the handle of your little wrench here and put it in if you don't want to, say you don't want to bend your fingernail backwards. That in place like so. There's a metal shield around. I'm taking that just flush with the top of this, making sure that this says forward is to the front. Tighten this back up. Again, just snug, don't get crazy with it. Okay, next are the baffles, and they just go on the side like so. But you'll need to peel off this paper that's on there. And I've had some of these on things where this is easy and some where it's been just a pain. These are coming off real easy. So I'll get these unpeeled and I'll show you how these mount. Okay, to mount the acrylic covers on the sides, for each side you'll need 4 of these screws or 4 of these little T-nuts, what I call hammerhead nuts. So what you do for this, of course this mounts like this. Put your screw through there. The hammerhead nut is flat on one side, and on the other side it's somewhat rounded. The rounded side will go towards the extrusion. And all you want to do is get that nut started on there a couple turns. You know, once you have those started, just turn them all horizontal. Place this up against the extrusion. Push them in there. Now as you tighten those screws, those little T-nuts in there, what I call hammerhead nuts, will rotate and lock themselves in place. Now don't over tighten these, you'll break your acrylic. Just need them snug. And I'll do the other side here. Okay, wiring for the spindle motor, which is spindle motors right here. This is very important you don't mess this up. You'll have a red wire and a black wire. It's marked M plus, M minus. The red wire will go to the plus. There's a little plastic shield you can push down over that. The black wire will go to the minus. This would be easier if I could see what I was doing. But I wanted to be able to get a close-up of that in there. Make sure you got enough slack there so that this can travel all the way up and down the Z-axis. It should look just like that. Okay, on the back of the base here where the Y-axis is, you'll have these two cables. One is a 3-pin, that's the limit switch. The other one is a 4-pin, that is the stepper motor. This is marked up here for the Y-axis. There's a couple little prongs or raised parts on there. Those go up. This should slip right in with no effort. You don't need to force anything. You bend those pins, you'll have a hard time with them. Now, the limit switch is down here and it's marked. And again, you've got the same little protrusions there that you line up with the socket. It'll plug in like that, no effort. Now we'll need to take cable tie and tie all this stuff together here. And they do give you some. And something I'll mention here for those that have never used a cable tie before. One side is raised up, the other side is flat. When you put this around, always put it through the flat side. If you put it around this way, it won't hold. They have to go this way. People say, oh, they sent cable ties, they aren't any good, they don't work. You have to put it through the right side or it won't work. Okay, and we'll dress this up a little more. We'll put another one up here to hold all these together. Then there are a couple of brackets right here on the side. Hopefully you can see those. A couple of brackets right here for your cable ties to go through these little slots. You place your cables inside the slots there, and the cable tie will go around behind them. It's going to be a lot easier if you move the X-axis and get the spindle out of the way so you can get your hand under there. And once you're done, you can just trim the ends off. I don't have my tie gun right here, so I'll just do it the old-fashioned way and cut it off with a pair of side cutters. Okay, for the clamps that are going to hold your work down, and this is a little bit different from the old style. You'll have the bracket, a screw. I've already screwed the screw into the hole on the bracket here. You'll have a stud, just threaded stud, a washer, and a wing nut. So the stud will screw into one of these holes. Your hold down will set over it like that. Then you'll have your washer, and then your wing nut. And I put that on upside down right off the get-go. Okay, you got your stud in there. It goes this way with the screw head down. And then your wing nut, and I'll get a piece of wood so we can see how this works. I just grabbed a piece of pine out of the scrap box over there. So this will come out like so. You want to run your other screw down and tighten up your wing nut. Try to get things fairly straight here. You want just a little bit of an angle there pointing down. You don't want it this way, you want it this way, but not a whole lot. You just want a little bit there. Now I'll need to get me a clamp on the other side. Okay, as I said, you'll need at least 2 clamps to hold your piece in. This is a pretty big piece of wood for this, but for what we're going to do, it'll work just fine. Okay, you'll see on the back corner back here, we need to get some power and everything connected. And I've got the power supply cord put on that. I still don't know why I have 2 AC cords. Maybe somebody just dropped an extra one in the box to factory, I don't know. So we have power cord that goes into the bottom one right here. It's a little cold out here, so these cables are a little stiff. Next one is for the USB, and you'll see I have the offline controller cable laying here. If this is anything like the other one, you cannot have the offline controller connected while you're connecting to a computer. It's got to be one or the other. So this just plugs in back here. Then we have a power switch right here. Turn that on. Little red lights come on. Now I do not have a bit in the collet yet, and there's a reason for that, because I don't know what this is going to do or what I might do, and I don't want to break a bit off. Of course, then the other end of your USB cable you'll need to connect to your computer. Okay, so you're probably wondering what exactly is on that little micro SD card with that SD card driver. I've got it right here. And there is a little video here you can watch. There's the user manual that there's also a printed edition from. We will need the driver to be installed. It's a CH341 or CH340. And this is what we're going to be putting in. It's a CH341SCR.INF install. Driver install failure. That's interesting. Well, I have a newer version of this in here, I guess. Okay, I didn't want to overwrite. I have a newer version of this because I also use this for lasers and 3D printers. But that's how you install the driver. Is just double click on this here, and it'll self-install. This package up here is just full of ads and crap, so I don't know exactly what that's about. So let's go back here. You're going to need to put candle on. And I don't know what version they have here. Yeah, that's fairly new version. So we have a setup, install. Well, I guess this runs off the card. So what we need to do next is get the CNC actually connected here. I just wanted to see what all was on the card first. Okay, just so I have candle on this laptop, I'm going to copy the candle file onto my desktop. And here it is here. And I'm going to send that to my desktop. I have a shortcut there. So I'm going to close the original one that's running off of the SD card and run it off the desktop. There we are. Okay, now we need to get connected. Okay, you're going to need to measure the absolute thickness of the probe here. So I've got a digital caliper here, and I've zeroed it. So I am 12.1 millimeters. So you'll need to write that down or remember it. I'll need to write it down because I won't remember it. Okay, we need to set our Z probe height here. So you go in candle and make sure, well, you should be connected. Go to service and settings. There's probe commands right here. It should be interconnection. There'll be probe commands. You're going to need to change a couple things, and refer to your manual for this because this may be confusing to some people. So G92, which is right here, is showing 12.35. I need to change that to 12.1. Then G0, I can leave that at 13. So 25 minus 12 is 13. So yeah, that's your maximum height. And just click OK. Okay, I need to install a bit here before we can do absolutely anything. So I've taken one out of the package here. And I'm leaving the plastic coating on until I get it installed. These are extremely sharp. We want to loosen this up. Slip our bit up in the collet. Don't get the plastic part up into the collet though. So now you'll want to hold the shaft here. And then tighten the collet nut down tight. By tight I mean like really snug, but not like gorilla tight. But you don't want that slipping, and you certainly don't want it flying out of there. Oh, there we are. Now next we'll be setting the Z probe. So the way this works is the probe will go right underneath the bit, and this clips to the bit. So it'll look like that. Okay, now there's a button here, right there, a little magnifying glass with a probe picture in it. Click on that, and that will run down until the probe touches the bit. I should say the bit touches the probe. Now we know our offset. So next I need to load a project, and they give you a test file. So go to File and Open. And I need to go find that. Test code. We'll do the Sainsmart logo. That loads it right there. Alright, something I want to point out, and this confuses a lot of people. So this is your Y-axis travel right here. So when you've got the CNC in front of you and you're looking at the front of it, you think that's going to move it away from you. It does not. It moves it towards you. You look at the screen over there, so it's, no, you don't have it hooked up backwards. There's nothing wrong with the machine. That's just the way it is. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do before you get started here is get in a position where you want your engraving to start, and go up here to 0xy. Then you're ready to send it. Job done there. Time elapsed was 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Okay, this may be a little bit hard to see, but it is right here, and I did engrave it. I suppose because of where it ended up in the grain, it's really hard to see here, but it did make a good engrave. Maybe I'll try this on something that'll be a little bit more evident of what it's doing. On a completely unrelated note, the date today is October 17th, and I just happened to look outside and it was snowing. Way too early for that. Okay, let me get some other wood put on here so you'll be able to see the engravings a little bit better. I'll put a piece with a dark surface. That should show up a little better. There, a little bit better, a little bit easier to see. Perfect engraved there. So there it is. That's how you put it together, and that's how you do your initial setup. And hopefully if you're following along with this and you're setting it up in Canada, you didn't have any problems. This is actually pretty straightforward. Here I have the two sit side by side. This is the original Prover. This is the Prover V2. And the next video will be comparing the two and what the differences are. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. Of course, we're always looking for subscribers. Roger in the shop. Sainsmart Prover version 2. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.